Bum ba da da dee da da dee da 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 dum. Bum ba dee da dee da da ba da 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 ba dum. Bum ba da dee da 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 dee da 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 dum. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to this edition of the Tuesday Telecast. I am bringing on a very special guest, a very special and deep thinker and person who cares about a lot of people, and her trajectory is one that has gone to the joyful path from places that were not always joyful, and it's exactly the stuff that we come here to hear. So, Chrissy Bencivenga, or Chrissy B. Zen, we will hear about how that came to be, and we will get her in here and talk to her about all the things. All right, so let's go bring her into the house. Hi, Chrissy, and welcome to the show.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, I am so happy to have you on here. You have a really cool last name, and your last name is Bencivenga. Am I saying it right? And then you call yourself Zen for a middle name. How cool is that? So,
Yeah, it's actually an interesting story because my name used to be Chrissy Calzadia when I was married. And when I was divorced, I wanted to go back to my maiden name. And in the United States, they say Bencivenga. In Italy, it's Bencivenga. It has such a beautiful ring. And you said it perfectly, Bencivenga.
I used to live in Italy.
Okay. I was like, wow, she knows the true pronunciation. And I had to change my Instagram name because it used to be Chrissy Calza Music. And it went nice. I've always had these long last names. They both were 10 letters to 10 letters. And my aunt came up with it and she was like, you've always been Chrissy B, right? Chrissy Bencivenga. She's like, Chrissy B Zen. Just put Zen in there because you've adopted meditation. You love living a Zenful life. You're always searching for your peace. Put Zen in. And I was like, oh, that's great. Because I was like, I don't want to change my name. Chrissy Calza Music had a great ring to it.
Yeah.
So I did change it and it was great. It actually in local productions and acoustic shows that I perform, it's kind of like my stage name now, Chrissy B Zen. So
Yeah.
it was it's very fun. And thank you for noticing my cool stage name.
It's fantastic. I have something that's not nearly so hip and sexy, but I did the same thing when because I didn't change my name, but I ended up hyphenating my name when I was married, and I ended up being in the music world the composer, the Lydia with two last names. And when I got divorced, I went back to just my maiden name, but I took on my middle name, so I would still have two names
I
because
love that.
you get like used to a way of being. And I think that's one of the ways that you and I have connected, like where is our comfort in our way of being, and where we let our comfort go, and where have we become curious about what it is when we strip away that comfort. So
Mm.
um I want to just pick your brain on that particular subject. Is you've made a lot of changes in your life, and that's almost too big of a can of worms to open up for anyone. Like it could go anywhere, but if you think of a change that you have had that's really been uncomfortable, and then has been a growth time. This channel is the joyful path. The show is the Tuesday
Mm.
Telecast, but it's all about. I asked you here because it's not like you were just born on the joyful path. You put yourself there.
Absolutely. I get it. I get it. I get where you're going with this. And yes, I truly believe that the darkest, difficult transitions in my life were by far the best ones, right? They were the best because they led me to knowing myself further.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say the biggest transition was I was I was married for 12 years and we experienced infertility during those times. So we had this life that we envisioned and we just kept trying to make it happen. And it was a difficult, expensive path filled with a lack of communication between two people and a lack of understanding of where each was at, myself and my ex. We didn't understand each other's emotions and we weren't even familiar with the emotions that were coming up inside us. So we were trying to kind of just keep going, eye on the prize. And it was about 10 years of that. And if anybody has gone through even a little bit of an infertility struggle in a couple or on a solo path with IVF, and just it's something that they want and they're going after it no matter what, and then it doesn't happen. I had to examine my motivations. And I didn't do that till later. So then it came a time where the two of us just put too much strain on the relationship, and we did divorce rather abruptly. And 3 weeks later, we went into the pandemic. And after going through everything I had gone through, that was my identity. So I had all of this, I was very heavy. I had a lot of grief running through me. And now we were in a pandemic and I was essentially felt alone. I was disconnected from his family who had been in my life for 15 years.
Yeah.
My father was so close with them, and we lived in a house with my father. So now it was just my father and I and the dog and a pandemic. And my life in a matter of weeks became a different life. There was a whole 2 weeks I didn't get out of bed. There was, I was still working because I was in the essential worker category, supporting people with developmental disabilities. I worked for a nonprofit at the time. And my life was unrecognizable. I was like, who am I? It was the ultimate existential crisis. Nothing made sense anymore. And the only thing that kept starting to gravitate towards me during that time was the idea of meditation and mindfulness and using apps to get through the pandemic. There was a lot of people who started talking about mindfulness during the pandemic, and I was in HR. So it was something that was coming up. How can you support your workforce? So I was like, well, let me try these things. And I just tried them. I never thought I'd be a person who would take to meditation or any type of looking inward. And that sent me down a whole spiral to where I am today. So I would say that difficult period of my life from 2020 on, and I would say 2020 to 2023 were super messy for me.
Yeah.
And then 2024 came and things just started flowing. And I believe in the mess leading to the flow. When someone tells me that they're in that messy part, I'm like, oh, I'm excited for you. And it's an unpopular opinion, but I have this excitement for them, because anything that really changes things up, especially as an adult, or that time of your life where you're like, is this really what I'm doing here? Am I happy? And you don't realize it, but you peer through and you push through, and you just, a lot of times when you're not in touch with your emotions, your emotions rule you. Right. So I was being completely emotionally led in the beginning. And that was beautiful for me. A lot of people would be like, wow, that could be really detrimental if you're just letting your emotions run the show. And I did. And it was detrimental. And then I came out the other side like, right. So I do feel that I am in this place of calm and peace now. And it took years to get there. And it's a journey. I'll be on it forever. There's always another area to uncover. I'd be like, oh, wow, I didn't see that one.
It's like it's like the different parts of ourselves, the different parts of our being, the brain, the heart, the gut. If they're not heard, they're just like separate humans. When we're not heard, we suddenly, say, I need to be heard. We act out, and when we're just by ourselves, it still happens, because the inner parts of us just say, hey, either some part of us says, think, woman, think, or some part of us says, what are you, I'm not being heard. I'm not being, my heart hurts, or just like, hey, I've been hurt too many times and I'm not using my gut at all. And then all of a sudden you're just intuiting everything. You're saying, okay, I need to integrate this. Whatever part of us is not being heard will finally shout and say, me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that actually made me think about it when you talked about the gut and the different parts. My youth was a lot of dealing with issues with my stomach, esophagus, IBS. I had an eating disorder, right? And from 15 to probably 25, I was in a deep spell of my life where I was bulimic. And talk about not integrating your body. You're not even allowing food to metabolize and nourish you. So I was so disconnected. The thought of my gut was just this area that always gave me problems. So interesting. And as I've healed and moved through these areas and integrated, I have had so many less physical issues in all of these areas.
Yeah.
I mean, even my voice as a vocalist has gotten better due to tapping in to my body, whether it be in meditation, through yoga, just paying attention to the throat chakra, however you want to look at it, the energy center, whatever you want to call it. We have all these parts of our body, and we're always up here, always up here. And the power of dropping into the heart, that was a new notion for me. I'm like, okay, I'm going to visualize the breath coming through my heart. And you see, it seems weird when you first start doing it. You're like, okay, I'll take it. Maybe it's like a placebo, right? Like I'll believe
but
it.
all you have to do
works.
is put your intention there. That's the thing. And it's, and there are those of us who are experts. We've done our 10,000 hours of effort in this area, right? But who help people to get there. But when you're first getting there, it's like, this can't be right. This can't, right. this can't be right. Like I've got to be faking it. I guess I'll just fake it until I make it. Putting my attention on my heart. But well, yeah, actually we're just that powerful, and we're just that simple too.
Yeah. Right. It's easier than we think. We have a tendency to overthink it and complicate it, but that intention is so important. If I say, I'm just going to, this is my trick to rid judgment. Like that's what I'm working on right now. I'm doing affirmations, and I would like to release any trick for myself over others. We go there so easily. We just catch it because they might display something that you don't, that an ideal or an idea that you don't take on in your life, and you know what's worked for you, and you're looking at them, you're like, really, you think about it that way? So if you just, this is going to release me of judgment, right? You can almost like make it work in your life. Yeah. But it is that simple, right? No matter what tool you use, the intention behind it, you'll be more mindful of when you're in a state of judgment. That's all I'm asking for. That's what I tell a lot of people who I speak to who want to start interrupting the negative thoughts, like whatever they may be, thoughts of judgment, thoughts of lack, thoughts of, I mean, those are the big ones. I can't even, the thoughts of judgment, if you just start with thoughts of judgment and thoughts of lack, you really cover such a huge, it's a great umbrella for the rest of everything else, because it's your internal value system, how you feel about yourself. And when that raises, you inherently have less judgment for others because you have so much to give them. You'll take that time to have a conversation with someone who is, to you, seemingly misaligned, but you'll speak with them with compassion and listen, maybe throw in a little bit of nonviolent communication skills and get to practice. And you're like, wow, this is fun for me. This non-judgment, this, because I have it to give. So whatever gets you there, I think that's the overarching message. Whatever gets you to that place, whatever it is, if it's whatever, and in the beginning, especially, and even now I'll be in a public place, I'll be like, oh, they see me sitting. I'm clearly not sleeping. I'm clearly sitting on a bench with my eyes closed, breathing deeply. And I remember looking at people meditating when I was not in a state of consciousness that I believe that I am. And I remember the judgment that I had for the people who looked so wacky and out there, sitting on a bench in front of a body of water with their feet on the ground and their back straight. I didn't know what they were doing, really. I know that I've been exposed to them, and I'm like, okay, you do you. That's cool. Right? So there was so much judgment over everything that I became. Everything that I became, every step of the way. There was so much judgment that lived inside me that actually wouldn't let it out. So it was a great journey. It still is, but
it still is. It's always that. And there's all sorts of people saying there's joy in the journey. Well, there's whatever you want to put into the journey, but it always is the journey. If you set yourself on the destination, then you're never present. And that's the thing that we miss, where people, there is, literally you do you, like, but when you can step away from it without judgment, because we are each finding our way to have attention, and where are we putting our attention? If we're putting it on reacting and on judging, then we get blinded. But when we actually start putting it on, what the heck is happening when I'm, tapping when I'm tapping, what is happening when I'm breathing? What is happening when I say, oh, I am going to put energy into my belly button, what's happening there? And we change where our attention is, and all of a sudden we get curious, and everybody does it a different way. There's not a right way. Oh my goodness. All the things out there that say, no, this is the way, but this is the way for you. And you may find there's a better way, or you may find that there's a softer way, or you may find that there's a less efficient way and you like it better because you want to have that meandering road. and that's okay.
Mm,
But
it is.
it's all that journey. It's and that's where kind of the fun is, where you can just laugh and be.
I'm
You're having,
calling my dog over. Sorry.
yeah.
I was worried that the gate might be open because we
Yeah.
have, that's it. We have, I was telling you earlier, I'm having work done on my house, and it's such, I live in a state of gratitude, right? And so gratitude that I'm in the position to have work done on my house. But if anyone has ever had work done on their house, right? It is somewhat, there's people in your space, there's loud noises going on 24/7. As you see, I'm outside. And these are the little joys in life that we get to use our tools, the tools, right? Oh, I'm triggered right now. Whatever tools we've adopted, I'm triggered. There's so many sounds going on. I want to have a Zoom call. I have to do some coursework, but I can't because I'm so distracted and my house is a mess. I don't know where anything is, right? My whole entire room is in the garage.
Oh yeah.
And then you can just be like, it'll all get done. But you've it just passes, and you've gotten to use your tools. Like, you're always going to get opportunities to use your tools. And there will be big opportunities that are really hard. There's loss and grief that come in our lives. We can never manifest our way out of that, right? There's always going, because we're loving beings. We're always going to love. And as much as the idea of non-attachment sounds great to me, but I know how attached I am to my father, right? It is what it is. What it is. It's an amazing relationship. So these tools that we develop to get to bring us through, to usher us through, almost like it's like a feather bed.
Yeah.
It can be so much easier. Since I've taken on this way of life, I've had breakups, I've had difficult times. It's not like things just started becoming amazing. You still have difficult situations that you work through. And I think that's what the true letting go is.
Mm.
It's not letting go of that love you have for the person. It's not saying, well, I'm not going to grieve because I'm in a place of happiness and gratitude. It's it's the way you process it. It's I would say gentler. I would say the depth that I've had to resolve, right? Difficult situations, the death of relationships, the death of people in my life. I would say death is a big one that we all experience, and we just have a lot of fear over, and there's so much pain. And I have found it to be very healing to go through that loss and also have this sense of consciousness about me where I still feel the connection to
Yeah.
the people who are no longer, or that's those spirits of people, right? What they represented in my life, who they were to me. I still can hold on to that and get into that state of gratitude of that connection. I think I'm still able to keep that connection. And I think it's
Yeah.
the connection that people miss so badly, right? I always say Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks, if anyone knows anything about the channel of Abraham Hicks and the law of attraction. Um, she talks about how she was looking for her husband after he passed, but she was looking for him where he was, not where he is. And it could be living inside you, that feeling that you got when you were with that person, that gratitude, that thing that they used to do for you that you had so much gratitude for. Can you get back to that space and feel it without being like, well, I don't have it anymore and I'll never get it again, The idea of, wow, I'm so blessed to have had those moments with that person, to be brought to that place where I felt so happy, right? And you can access it, and if you can access that happiness, there's that connection.
And
That's what I've been playing with.
that that idea, I mean, the gratitude brings us to what is more at the pith of, like, what is detachment, what is love. Heck, I've struggled a lot with that. And but these are separate concepts, that when you feel gratitude, when you feel like, that's a beautiful thing that I had at that point in my life, or that I have, or this memory that I have, we realize that we're all one. We are still attached, and but we're not attached like there's an object. It's that we're all one. It's just one big breathing part. And Neil Donald Walsh says it well in his Conversations with God.
I love that book.
Yeah,
So good.
just so much about when you realize that we're all, attached. it's not really an attachment. It's just a, like you're attached to your arm, but it's part of you. It's your arm is you less than you are your arm. Your arm is you, but it's part of you, and we're all part of one another. So the detachment is just from having that brain of stuff, and the physical place of stuff. And when we can get rid of that, we start to see that, oh, yeah, that's not where the energy of my ex-husband or of my grandmother or of my dog or of my daughter or of my that's not where they are. It's not,
Yeah.
they're not in the stuff. And suddenly you're free and you're joyful, and I think the gratitude gets you there because it gets you out of that state of mind of figuring it out and figuring out where are they, what's yeah.
Right. Like feeling lost and disconnected. I
Yeah.
think the gratitude for me, and I'll explain how I got into a gratitude practice in a moment,
Yay.
but that was my secret sauce of
Hmm.
all the work that I had been doing, reading about spirituality, mindfulness, kind of whatever you want to call it. I always say it's a vibe, right? I'm so in love with Gen Z, and everything's vibey, right? Like the Gen Z, lower, the younger millennials, even older. I'm a Gen X, I believe, right? I was born in 1979. I'm 45 years old, and I resonate with people in their 20s, 30. I resonate with pretty much every decade of people or any generation that we have around. I love people in general, but the younger generations were raised on social media, and we have so much to say about that. But if they
Right.
had that conscious if they had something living inside them that was a little bit on that conscious spectrum, they were sent the information from, I believe, the universe, or when they started scrolling, they had access from very young ages, information about self-love, information about connection, information about meditation, if it was looking for them. And I know myself, when I was younger, I did not have access to that because
Oh,
all I had access to were the people around me,
yeah.
school, the school system that I went to, the public school system of New York, and that was it. It was all that there was.
Right.
And I find the younger generations, they understand a little bit more, and they taught me. They were my teachers
Yeah.
about the vibe, how we can tap into the vibe. And I started getting curious. But I'll go into the part where I took on a full-fledged gratitude practice.
All right.
And that was right around this time. I would say actually October of last year, things started really getting hairy in the world. And I don't watch the news, but things had started happening. We had the Middle East was very like lit on fire, all eyes over there, right?
Yeah.
And here we were again in a situation where everyone is noticing oppression more. People feel helpless. It it really triggered a lot. It triggered a lot in myself. I'm a very empathetic person. I was seeing firsthand online what destruction was being done, um, and I became very depressed. I was in a state of like, wow, I have all this empathy for people who are underprivileged in this world, and all I see is it. And a lot of my social media was tailored to looking at what was wrong with the world. And there is a lot of power in just knowing that it's there, to never deny that there are so many things that are oppressing other people, right? Like I don't, we all have our own forms of oppression, but I delved into that. For my path just led me down that, right? To look at
Yeah.
my own privilege in society. How could I make it better? I started taking courses about it. I looked at, hi baby, my little dog. Yeah, he's a little scared right now. Anyway, I started looking at gratitude because a person that I followed online is so interesting. Her name is Maisha T. Hill, and she was in the liberation space, or a space where she taught, especially white women, to look at where they might be playing their part in upholding these socioeconomic, like in the workforce.
Yeah.
And she did run DEI courses, and I started learning from her. And then she herself was getting so depressed, covering all this news, talking about
Yes.
what's wrong with the world. And
Yes.
she adopted a strict gratitude practice, strict, where every day she started a group, and we got together, and every day we were in this WhatsApp group where we were talking about gratitude and doing, it was a small subscription, super affordable, where a lot of us band together and just needed to elevate our vibration, because we knew if we got so depressed about the state of the world, we were not going to be able to help others with our gifts.
Yeah.
Right. So she started on this gratitude practice, and I kept up with it. And I also forged a friendship with someone that I hold in such high esteem. I'm like, I can't believe I'm friends with this author and writer. I actually work with her now with I started taking AI courses and not building AI. I'm a person who teaches people how to use AI. So I'm not building the car. I'm teaching people how to drive. So I take that, what I know, and I work with her business and her organization. And it's just so interesting how life works out, because she was a person that I was like, wow, she has hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram, and she's a big person in a liberation movement for people to just kind of heal conflict through connection, through conflict, talking about things, unearthing things. And she does use somatic exercises with all of this to teach people how to tap into their emotions and get through the shame, because we have a lot of shame, especially in this country, I find, or countries that are more privileged. We have a lot of shame because we see what other people are dealing with and we don't know how to resolve that.
Right.
So I think the biggest lesson for me was, once I started on that gratitude path and started dedicating every day, and it seems ridiculous at first. You're like, thank you for this rain while I'm on this Zoom call and try, thank you for this umbrella that's just over my laptop, but not over me and my dog. And my poor dog is in the rain right now, right? It's great though. People sometimes will feel that it's annoying. That's the one thing I will always hop on social media to talk about gratitude and talk about how I get to the place of gratitude. And sometimes I talk about the annoying things that I go through, and then I bring myself back to gratitude. But once I started doing that, I would say everything started falling into place. The alignment started happening, and there was more abundance of everything. I don't want to say abundance and just lead it down the road of money, although that is a part of it.
Sure.
There was just more of everything. When you start looking at what you have, you're like, there's so many leaves. Bob Proctor actually got me there. There's a meditation for Bob Proctor. He talks about all about the vibration that you have to embody. And you can get the same vibration in your body when you look at the leaves around you or the raindrops, and you're like, there is an abundance of them. Look at how many leaves, look at how many blades of grass. This is beautiful.
Yeah.
And people would be like, okay, well, where's your millions? Why, if you're into this abundance, why aren't you calling in the millions? And I'm not saying that I'm not, right? I believe wholeheartedly that this path I'm on is very abundant in all areas. And I was able to tap into it by looking at those little things that I have around me that I would have never even given a second thought to. Like I was a person who was just, I didn't have much respect for the earth. Even as a teenager, I was bulimic, right? And I used to throw garbage out my window when I would go into like you go to a fast food restaurant, right? And you have a deep seedy eating disorder that you're not supposed to talk about. Sorry, the saw is going now. I would roll through a drive-through, 18, 19 years old, eat everything in sight, and then I would have to get rid of the evidence. I would have a bag of garbage and I would litter it. And I would never litter anything now. That would make me so sad to do it. But back then, I didn't have respect for my body. Am I going to have respect for the earth that we live on, this beautiful planet? I didn't have respect. I didn't have anything to give anybody. So if I didn't litter, it was because someone was looking at me. And that's something that, like that's how I lived my life. And I'm certain that there are a lot of people. I love this about me, that I'm willing to talk about those shameful moments when I littered, right? Unabashed. I don't even know if that's what, I just threw things anywhere, didn't care. I was so disrespectful for my surroundings. I lived from a place of lack. I never thought that I had anything to give anybody. I needed to take. I was a taker.
Yeah. Oh, you have such an important lesson there. Is what you just said. I mean, to me, this is a mic drop, that you were living in a place of lack, and that when you started to realize about all of the blades of grass, all the millions of blades of grass, striving in spite of people mowing them down, all the beauty there, all the leaves, depending on where you are, each of the grains of sand, all those things. There it is. There's how we get into abundance. I mean, you've just kind of given a way of feeling abundant, because there's abundance all around us. But when we don't have that relationship, and we are responding to what people might think, and what people, as opposed to what we see and what we love, and what brings us curiosity, what brings us awe, what brings us gratitude, it brings you to that abundant place. I want to say, I love your gratitude story.
I love these moments. See, the gate was left open.
Oh,
take him inside. My puppy is, I'm going to show him for everyone.
Oh,
Korean rescue dog.
Yep.
And he's so out of sorts when there's work being done on the house. He has to be right next to me. He has to like investigate everything, and they never remember to shut the gate.
Yeah.
So he's gotten out a couple of times,
Yeah.
enough for me to not ever want to deal with that again.
I understand.
Well, here we go.
I've got all these bracelets on, right? At an organization now called Stray, STRA, and they just started being supported by bracelets that you can put your money into a bracelet, or into 3 bracelets, or into 5 bracelets. And they have our little dogs and cats right on them too, little stones, and it feeds stray dogs in certain cities and stray cats in certain cities. What they have are these tubes on the side of the building, and they put food in the tube and water in the other tube, and the strays can come there. And people say, oh, but they will fight over it, and oh, they will. Well, actually, it's something good. Don't assume the worst, because these dogs and cats have been all living in the in the dumps, and yes, if they're proprietary over food there, but somehow they all make it or they don't. But this is real food and real water. So I've got all these bracelets on, and so your dog, and you don't want your dog to be a stray, and you've rescued your dog, and they rescue us too. There's just
They do. They really do. Oh, wow. That's beautiful though. I love that you brought that up, because a lot of times a favorite thing of mine to do is, and the reason I do want a good amount of abundance in my life monetarily, is I love to give it away. Like, now that I have a lot of love to give. So the idea of giving to people who are unhoused, right? I live close enough to New York City to pop in. I have a train ride away out in Long Island, New York.
Yep.
And a lot of people will be like, they go right to the, what they're going to use that on. And I'm like, good. That's what they want. That's their soul journey. If they're going to use it, there's no judgment. Whatever they want to buy, drugs, alcohol, sex, I don't care. I want to give them something that they don't have. I have a house to live in, and for whatever reason, their soul journey, they are unhoused right now in this stage in their life.
And any of us could be there at any point.
With that, and that's something like I don't want to have judgment for the people, right? That's what I'm working on. It's the people who tell me I'm going to LA in a week, and they're like, don't go to Santa Monica Pier. It's tent city. They always say that, right? Like it's going to be unsafe. Like, it's a very unsavorable place. It's going to be horrible. I'm like,
but what that is fear.
Tent city. Fear.
What it is just us. It's all fear. Even the people who are scathing about it, because it's scary. It's scary to imagine ourselves in that. We may have come from that. I'm not going to go into the homeless journey that I've been on right now, going around to different cities recently, but yeah, I'm writing a white paper right now on home insecurity.
How exciting.
With a lot of input from homeless people, and a lot of them are more degreed than I am, have been more favorably employed than I ever have been in my life. I mean, except that there's me dissing myself as a musician, which is not any less of a job than anything. But in under normal circumstances, like really working for and heading up big things, and they are homeless, and they don't know anything. No, they're just going to use this dollar in order to get high and try to forget that they live on the street, and that people try to light their hair on fire, and that they're digging in for trash. Like, if that's what and that's what everybody wants them to say, like, you're just using this to get high, you're just going to use this to shoot up.
And honestly, I have no problem with whatever anyone is here to do at that time in their life. And my judgment does not lie in the people who are doing the things that people judge at all. I'm all about the people who are doing the things that get judged. It's the people who love to judge outwardly. That's where I need to find the love for. That's what the people who are very strict in the rules that they have for how society should live. That is my journey right now. Finding, because I know where I stand. I could be pinned as a very big liberal, right? But not even, I don't like to put myself into that category, because I just I love people living their journey. I do believe we have many personally, and that helps me resolve the fact that it's not that big a deal. Yeah. I've come here to learn. I didn't necessarily come here to do. now there is a part of me that's like, you're here for great things. You've done great things and you will continue. But I don't expect it. And if I did pass on to non-physical form tomorrow, I would say I came for exactly the time and exactly the lessons that I wanted to learn this time around. There's no messing this up. Everyone thinks of like, I'm going to mess up. And there's this overarching, like Neil Donald Walsh, right? Like the man in the sky judging you. Like, there's no man in the sky in my head anymore.
Nope. I've told people once, a few people have caught this. I've died and come back on an operating table. There was peace. There was no big man. I didn't talk to any man. I was just held. And then, I came back and was like, I have to go back, because it was just so darn peaceful that it was just lovely. And then, part of me knew that, I was going to go back to all this pain and angst, because I have
more learning.
I have a tube down my throat. I have, I'm being cut open. I'm not, why, but, it wasn't like that. It was like peace, pain, like, and I was just kind of assured with no words that no, it's good. It's good out there, and you're not dying.
Wow.
But there was no man, there was no person, there was no anything like that. Nothing.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just because that's not how I saw it. Maybe that was my brain giving me what I wanted to see. But I don't think my brain was, really being all that calculated at that time. My heart had stopped. It's not
wow.
a period when and I will take it for what it is. It made me realize that nope, I'm not afraid of dying, but I'm also not afraid of being judged by any God. Not at all. I do not believe in a judgmental God.
No, I've come to the place, it feels so much better, this place, but my view is now that when whether it's source or higher power, whatever word you want to use for it, that non-physical entity that we're connected to, I look at it as that entity is so proud of me for trying different things, trying the drugs, messing up with different partners, and doing the toxic relationship thing, trying different things, being open-minded to different relationship paradigms, being open-minded to sexuality and genders. That, for me, in my world and my source, is like, oh, you had a misstep there? You think that's a misstep? That's not a misstep. You learned something so valuable. I have so much like, I picture that source saying to me, like, feeling like saying it to me telepathically, right? Because I believe that that's how we communicate in non-physical form. There's no language. So in a telepathic way, I have this knowing that there's so much gratitude for me in this physical form, with all the emotions and all the people's energies and all the things, by me reconciling that and doing what I felt that I needed to do in the time, wherever my self-love was at the time. That was what I would probably engage in, right? And there was so much gratitude, even for coming and being a person who started with low self-worth. And even if I stayed low self-worth and I was still actively bulimic and still actively picking apart my body like it's not good enough, and control, and doing lots of drugs or being promiscuous, we'll call it all in, right? I still believe that my higher self is like, you go, living life. Yeah, this is what we came here for, right? No judgment, judgment, just gratitude for us experiencing life, because it's really the experience we came here for. And we all have these stories. We all have these stories where we're a little bit shamed, a little bit embarrassed, a little bit proud, a little bit like, oh, I can't believe I did that. That's so cool, right? We have so many things that we've done in our lives that harbor so many like emotions, and it's tightly packed inside. And I believe that none of that matters. Literally none of it matters, because it is just this, we're infinite beings in physical and non-physical form. We're just floating on in and out. And that's how I view the world. And whether it's true or not, I believe wholeheartedly it's true. I would never sit here and try to get someone who's very authentic in their religious beliefs to come over to my side. I have zero interest in bringing people to my side unless they want it. Unless they say, I see what you have. I want a little bit of that. How'd you get there? Then I start giving the books that I read, giving the things that I do. And encourage people to explore it for themselves, just because we never know how this might resonate with someone or this, right? There's a multitude of tools out there, and I just encourage people to find their tools to connect. Other than that, I love diversity. I love it. I love it. That's what got me out of the workforce. That's a whole story for another day, but I love diversity. I'm a DEI trainer, not practicing at this time because I'm not currently in HR in that workforce. But the idea of helping people be more inclusive and view all around you as an equal part of this puzzle, this beautiful puzzle that we're putting together.
Yes.
Right? So I love when people have different viewpoints as me, because I can take something from that. I can delve into it. And there's so many aligned people that I'm learning within different religions. And that is okay. That's I can release the judgment, because I'm clearly out of any of the typical religions that I've been presented with growing up. I wasn't presented with many. It was mostly some form of Christianity. And maybe a little bit in New York, maybe a little bit of Judaism, right? So there's these two overarching, and like I never even got to delve into the Muslim religion and culture. Not because there was a lack of people practicing around me, but because we're so good at separating ourselves. Right?
And there's only so much you can do at one time, right? So if that's your focus, then maybe you're going to do it. But if it's not, then yeah, that separation is going to get in there really easily. Really, really easily.
And then I was able to meet people who were devout in their particular religions, and I could connect with that. I was like, oh, I see that you're connected to that's your source. It's like it's not a cookie cutter.
It's a connection to source. It's a connection to one another. Every one of us came from ancestors who at some point were wherever they were, by the sea or on a mountaintop or in the woods or in a swamp or in the desert or in the rainforest and on the sand, wherever they were. And they said, who am I and why am I here? Why are they there? And what is my relationship to all this? And they asked all these questions, and they asked them in different languages because they were in different places and they were connected to trees, or they were connected to rocks, or they were connected to, and we're humans. We want to know why, we want to know how. And we wanted to know, even back then when we were like, ooga booga, that's what we were doing. And it's all the same thing, that we're all asking the same question. So of course we have different names for them, and that's okay, because as long as we're connected.
Yeah.
So we'll get by if we're connected to the source. If we're judging, then we're separating ourselves. We're separating ourselves from the source. We don't, but it's all going to be okay. It's all
going to work out.
And ever we learn, because if you do it like the safe way, then it's going to take you a little longer. If you bang yourself into it, you're going to learn some stuff faster.
That's it. I banged myself into it. That's exactly. It was like that major life upset, and it's not that way for everybody. It's different. Some people always had that sense of peace, right? There's no timeline on it. Some people find it as children, based off of their situation and their parental figures, right? Because we're taking in information from them. No matter what, we are programmed through our parents. So culture and our parents program us. So if they have a lot of judgment and it's been passed down generationally, of course it's going to exist in us. And just to look at that and just know that we are all at different points of this in our journey. And for me, that's a big area that and I always come back to this one every couple of months, the judgment one. I find myself, now that I'm not judging people who aren't like me, like that's what I grew up doing, like anything, or judging people with money, judging people without. It could go on and on. I come from a long line of judgers, and they're beautiful people, but there was something about it where they had to feel better about themselves when they judged and talked about what others were doing that were wrong. Right? Whether they're in government, whether they're here, there was something to say about everything. It wasn't a bunch of people sitting around the table talking about their blessings.
Yeah.
But people do grow up in those environments. If it had worked out differently and I was a mother in this lifetime, now I would have children around me hearing about my blessings, because I worked that into it. So there's other people like you, myself, a lot of people we know in the Octopus Movement circle who are sitting around talking about their blessings, and think of how great that is for even our nieces and nephews and our grandchildren or step grandchildren. Think about all the people we're going to affect in our lifetime, because we sit around and talk about our blessings. It's very cool. It could go either way. So it's the fun of recognizing it and saying, now that I have all of this love for humanity and myself, what now? What feels good? Where can I best be of service? I was a waitress for many years. I was a bartender too, right? I was in the service industry. I did my service, but no, it's a different type of service.
Right. And you can be in the service, you can be in the military, you can give your life in service. There's a lot of different service, but there's also just actually, if we go to a position of leadership, it's not to have to put everybody down. It's actually because we can lift everybody up.
Yeah, that was a perfectly formed statement. Succinct. It's a t-shirt.
Once in a while I can do it.
About leadership. That's a really good leadership quote. And you and I have talked about even the word leadership. A lot of times it's a very triggering word. I got to get up to leadership in my company, or the leadership team. You hear that thrown around a lot.
Right.
And it's used to divide us. Oh, they're in leadership. They're not part of us.
And why? And that's just a consequence, because why would we want to do that? Why do we? Because we're scared. We're doing that so much in our country right now. I'm not going to say a word about like candidates and sides, but that we are blaming our problems on anyone else. And if we even blame being run over by a truck on the truck that ran us over, on the truck driver, we're not going to heal. We need to be just taking care of what we're doing. The moment we start blaming, then we get scared, we're separate. And that's it. So we've got so much of that. We go around in fear. And when you stop and you just start connecting again to the people, to the grass, to the dogs, to the sand, to the whatever you want, to all the lattes you've had in your life, you go. It's connect to that, and suddenly you don't have to be like, oh, I've got to be the top, because otherwise I'm going to be, it's going to be bad, and all the heathens are going to get me, and all the and like all the whatever your fear is.
I know. I love the way you phrase that. I love it. It really comes back to fear, and you can see it in people. You can see it in yourself. I would be remiss if I didn't mention I am not above feeling fear.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm not above it. I love to be like, let's take this life, by the. Oh, I won't finish that one. That's kind of crude. But take the life by the. Let's just take a big bite out of life and F around and find out, right? Like that's kind of my motto, but I do find myself in fear sometimes. The fact that I can find myself there is the part I'm so grateful for, right? The recognition of, am I acting or having a thought pattern that is led by fear right now? Little tool to track it back to love or fear, like peel away the onion, like how I have this feeling about certain something. I feel a certain sort of way. Where is that coming from? Is it a fear-based emotion? And as soon as it's a fear-based emotion, you can more easily intercept that thought, or you know that it behooves you to shoo it away like a yellow jacket. I don't like killing anything. Everyone wants me to kill those lantern flies in New York right now. We have something on the Northeast. We have these lantern flies, and they're an invasive species, and everyone's telling me to kill them. Even the most spiritual of spiritual, like, oh, you got to kill them. They're invasive. They're going to kill our crops. The wine country in Long Island. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to kill just because I'm told by the collective. And like, I had this whole big metaphor, right? And for me, it was stemming back to fear, right? Did I really have fear of this invasive species of bugs? Right. It's how I design it in, if I'm a designer of my life, is this invasive species going to be? So I stepped on a few. I realized it didn't feel good for me. And I was like, I'll let the other people worry about it, right? There's got to be something. We have AI now. We can figure this pest problem out collectively. I want to put my faith in that. It's just an example of where fear steps in, and everyone has heard this story of how and what they're going to do.
And it's just not where everybody is aligned. Some people will be aligned to that because that's where their mind goes. We each protect something in our lives, whether we realize it or not. And some people are protecting the crops, but it doesn't mean that everyone has to go out and kill every bug in order to protect the crops. The people who are protecting the crops will protect the crops. If they're protecting their wallet, then it might come out in different ways and not so what works so well for the crops or the bugs or anyone else. These things we just learn. It all comes out in the wash. It all comes out in the wash.
That was beautiful. And even on this call, you saw me in fear, right? Everyone who will watch this will see me in fear when I saw my dog going towards that gate. And I was like, nope, got to do this. I'm going.
Yeah.
Bringing them in, right? I have that fear that I will be separated. There was not much trust in the universe with me in that interaction. I also knew that I could just quickly shut the gate and I would be able to to calm my fears in that moment. But they were fears nonetheless. We do have these fears.
And that's
But,
okay. I mean, fear
right.
is there for a reason. If you didn't have any fear of that happening, you may never shut your gate, and your dog may run out and get run over.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's okay. It's not like it went, I'm never going to let my dog out the door again because it's bad out there. You know, it's not like that. It's like, yikes, the gate isn't shut. I'm going to shut the gate.
Yeah.
We have to give ourselves a break for some of our fearful reactions because they get shit done. It's what you just can't live like that all the time, because that's not, we don't have to live in that way, and we don't have to take on other people's fears. We will, but sometimes we'll have to say, is that my fear or is that somebody else's fear? And is it real? Is it real for me?
Is it real? Give yourself that grace. That is a lot of grace, a lot of rope. Give yourself a lot of rope.
Lots of slack on that rope. I was in Mesa Verde just a few days ago on my birthday. Missed my airplane, and there was like a crazy long rope that was found in one of these Pueblo villages, and a lot of the artifacts have been taken out of there by people. But as we discover and preserve it, some of them are still there. So I think this artifact may have been taken out, but it was rope, which they make out of yucca, and the fibers from that, you know, they make all sorts of things. I really, I said they have because their ancestors are still around, you know, that they have not disappeared. The people who were living in the mesas have not disappeared. They've just, you know, moved like the rest of us do. But rope, it was like something like 300 meters long. It was like, you know, and they did that by chewing those fibers and then, you know, twisting them together. Yeah. And just that. And they were happy, and all evidence shows that they were very happy there. And when they weren't, they moved on. So there's like the literal rope and there's that giving yourself the grace of worrying about the problems that you can, and not worrying about the problems that you can't. And when something rises up and puts itself in front, then you'll respond to it, and that's you've got it, and you've got the rope. You know, it just really put me into mind of that whole national park experience.
It sounds beautiful. I was thinking about how it could probably be very meditative sitting there making rope, right? I was thinking about that and thinking about how they would do it in community, right? So you're into it, you're making your rope, you're making it serves such a huge purpose in the community, and you're doing it together. It sounds actually really blissful. It's a lot of like a lot of us are trying to get back to those roots of that simplicity of not needing as much stimulation, and noticing that the stimulation deprivation, right, whether it's one of those float tanks or whatever, where it's not as much, where it's not a telephone, a screen, or this or that, and like 3 people asking you questions and a latte, right? so much stimulation. When you strip a lot of it away, I have found in my life, like, it's a privilege to strip away that stimulation. And when I get there and I get the times to do that, that is such a privilege. So I look back at the times where it wasn't like you had to manage and start like 12 different companies at once. You weren't 18 founders deep in it, right? Like it's gotten to a point where it's a lot of stimulation, a lot coming at us. And the thought of sitting around with people in community and building, chewing on the yucca and then like making the rope sounds blissful to me. And I think I have to get to that park now.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's beautiful.
It's just so much. No matter what, when we get down to the pith of things and we strip all that away, it can be the most exciting part. Like, just as good. We love a good bit of dopamine, you know, or a good bit of whatever, but we have this inherent in ourselves. We weren't just being, you know, like dopamine free before the internet came along, and before television and radio came along, before wars came along. I mean, we had it, and we all can have it however it is that it comes to us. And it may be in a video game, it may be in a movie, it may be into, whoa, that thing that I just stripped off, that's inside of me. That's intense. That's really intense. That's really lovely, or that's really scary, but it's dopamine for you, man. Dopamine.
I love that reframe too, because so many of us who have been through addictions and all the good, fun, messy stuff that really lets us get to know our inner self, we tend to demonize dopamine a lot of the time. And I like that reframe of the, it feels good. We came to feel good, and we can find dopamine in so many different things. And I really do. I find dopamine in co-creation.
Yeah.
I find dopamine in talks just like this one.
Yep.
Right. And there's so many untapped places still yet to come that we can find dopamine. So it really is all, and coming back to the beginning, it's really all connected.
It's all connected. Yeah. So if you were going to leave our audience here today with one thing for being more connected or being more grateful or being what would it be?
Do it anyway. Do it anyway, even though you might be worried that people are going to judge you. Say it anyway. Do it anyway. Don't judge it, and let the chips, if it's coming from you, don't judge it. It's not bad. Do it anyway. Even though you've already come up with the idea of who's going to judge it, who's going, you have all these fake conversations in your head about what your aunt might say to your other aunt about you. I do it all the time. Right? But what they might be saying behind your back, ooh, do it anyway.
And that's them. It's not you. Yeah.
Oh, it's not even them.
And it may not be them.
It's the version of them that lives in my head.
Right.
It's not even them. No one's really, there's no guarantee that they saw that post. No guarantee. And even if they did, do it anyway. Do it anyway. And a lot of it is, do it anyway in spite of, especially for me, I thought meditation, I talked about it earlier, affirmations, meditation, the reprogramming of your internal value system seems really weird. You'll start listening to people like Louise Hayes, Wayne Dyer, all this stuff, and it just seems so foreign. And I pushed through, and I learned the language of the love language of love of yourself and love of others. And you do, when you're going through, because you've been conditioned to think that is weird and not cool and just out there.
Yeah, we have to strip away a lot to hear it.
Strip that away, and then you do it anyway, and you might do it in secret, and you might not even believe it when you're saying, I am so worthy, I am so, like, just that worth to be on this earth and to be living a life, right? Look, that's lacking in a lot of people. So whatever can get you to that point, if you start with something and you do it anyway and push through, even though you think you might be judged for it, and you don't believe it while you're doing it, even still, that was me every time. I was like, I'm being judged, I don't believe it. I'm being judged, I don't believe it. But I did it anyway. And I've arrived to a place where I believe it, and I'm being judged, and it's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm not, there really is no judgment, but there is, like, you can't please everybody.
There would be no progress if we pleased everybody. No progress at all.
No. Do it anyway.
Right on. I love that. Chrissy, I hope you come back.
This has been a great discussion. I've had a couple of great discussions with you, and it's just, I'm in awe at the way you can take a story, like a real good neurodivergent story like mine, where it's all over the place, and then you have this statement that encapsulates exactly what I just said in the most succinct, beautiful way. It's such a gift of yours, and it has been a pleasure. It's such a pleasure to interact and come to that aha moment that, yes, that's it. That's exactly the essence of what I'm saying. So thank you for that, and the gift that you give to the world, and all the blessings that you give to the world, because there are many. And we're so, so anyone who's here and listening, you probably know enough about what Lydia is about, and you're curious and you get it. And thank you for being here and supporting her and myself. And yeah, it's just beautiful co-creation space. It's really nice.
Co-creation is exactly what it is. And yeah, including everybody in the audience. So thank everybody for being here. Whenever in history that you are seeing this, thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. And if you would like, again, to connect to Chrissy, her information is down in the show notes. Also, if you would like to know more about the organization that I mentioned, where these bracelets come from, where you can help feed stray animals in 5 major cities throughout the world through these tubes that are like plumbing, but on the side of buildings and near to slums and dumps, and where stray cats and dogs can go and feed. That company is Stray, STRA. In the meantime, if you liked this, please hit like And if you're not already a subscriber, gently push the subscribe button. Until next time, I will see you on the joyful path. Ciao.
Bum ba di da di da da ba da 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 ba dum. Bum ba da di da 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 di da 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 dum. Bum ba da di da da ba da 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 dum.